Greetings and welcome to another Swords and Stitches. Today we are going to be working with a franchise that is one of my favorites. I absolutely love the Portal series, and so we are going to be making Portal Lazy Susans. And what a Lazy Susan is it's basically like a tray or a bowl of some sort that can spin. A lot of times you put it on your dining room table, some people put it on their coffee tables, but either way, they're really easy to make actually out of things that you might not expect. So let's do it. So what we are going to need is some plant saucers. These are the things that when you have a plant in a pot, you put it on the saucer so that when it drains water, it catches it in here, but we're going to use it for a very different purpose today. So we're going to take this. We are also going to need some acrylic paint. I am going to use Calypso Sky and Vivid Orange, but any colors that look like the Portal colors to you, feel free to use those. We're gonna make two because we have to. I couldn't just make one, I couldn't choose. So yeah, those are the colors that we're going to use, along with white to do the actual APERTURE logo. Then we are going to need some sort of an industrial glue. I'm using E6000. You can use Gorilla Glue, really anything that's going to adhese the Lazy Susan hardware, which is literally what it's called. There is no fancy name for this. It's going to just say Lazy Susan on the packaging. And look, it's all fancy. This part is the part that sits on the table, and then this part spins independently. So later on, we're just going to adhese this to the bottom of this, and then suddenly it's a Lazy Susan. Other than that, the only other thing that we're gonna do is we're going to seal the actual paint with our acrylic sealer again. So it's a pretty simple process, and I'm excited to get started. I need things to put these on upside down so that we can do the bottom part. We're gonna try to do this in a systematic way where we're constantly working, even while paint is drying. Don't mind me. This has to do with valve, it's fine. We're gonna put that upside down. Sometimes these are gonna look really dirty, but you know, just wipe them down. If they still look dirty, for the most part, the paint is just gonna cover everything up, so you don't really need to worry about it. Boggle has nothing to do with valve, but it fits perfectly, so we're gonna do it. And now I need a couple of disposable bowls so that I can have one bowl with the blue and one bowl with the orange. So again, we are maximizing our efficiency. We're going to cover this one in the first coat of paint and then move on to this one. And by the time this one's done, this will be dry and we can go back. Acrylic is actually just a plastic paint. It dries really, really fast, but it can also peel away really easily. So we're just gonna put a bunch of layers on there to cover up the color and also to just make sure that it's really sturdy. So this first coat is gonna look like it's not doing anything. We're not gonna use any sort of technique with it. We're just gonna be like, all right, putting on some paint. The next couple of layers, we are going to do something kind of specific with our strokes to make sure that it's kind of even and randomized. But this first coat, you're just gonna be like, just get it on there, man. We're doing a lot of layers, so it's totally fine. This one's gonna be completely covered up. Just gotta make sure that it's all over. And we're gonna paint it all the way down to here. When they have cool ridges like this, you can take the time to, you know, put some tape there and maybe do alternate colors. We're just gonna keep it simple today though. So now that we have our base layer on there that was kind of haphazard and whatever, this color is looking really pretty on that ceramic planter color, but now we are going to have kind of a specific way that we're gonna do this. So we're gonna take a little bit of paint on here and we're literally going to make X's. So we're gonna do this all over. And right now it's gonna, some people just do this for the entire thing because it gives it kind of a rustic, interesting look to it. It's adding a texture, honestly, is what it's doing. It's kind of like blotting it with newspaper. But we're gonna use this to make it so that there aren't really any streaks in our final product, so that it's just really evenly distributed all over the place so that you don't see any specific direction to any of it. And we're gonna do this 3 times, I would say. So now that we have 4 layers on, you can see that the very nice blue that we have is pretty even. It's covered up that color. But the orange is gonna take a few more layers. So we're going to leave this one upside down, and as we go, we're gonna continue to add on more paint. So it'll just take a few more layers than the blue. But something that I did wanna point out is that If you have any spots like this, where you just think to yourself, God, I keep adding paint, but it doesn't seem like it's ever staying on there, it means that you're not letting it completely dry. I've done this a lot before. So if you have this problem, or it seems like you're on layer 3 and you can still see so much of it, just let it sit for a little bit longer than maybe the other colors have to sit. Different paints dry at different times, unfortunately, but for the most part, it's gonna be the same. So now, while that one is continuing to go, we are going to flip this guy over, and then we're gonna paint the inside, and we're gonna do the exact same thing. It's gonna be, you know, just whatever layer, then we'll add a little bit to this, and then we'll start doing the actual cross layers on there. About 4 or 5 layers, whatever looks completely even to you, and then we get to add the Aperture logo. So we've completed our blue saucer. The orange saucer is still gonna take a couple of layers, but it's almost there. So while each layer is drying, we can move on to the next step, which is printing off the Aperture logo. I just printed it off onto cardstock so that I could take my X-Acto knife and cut out each section. I'm not even about to freehand this. This is not gonna happen. It's too precise. So we cut out all of the gray spots, and then we're going to figure out where center is on this and where center is on the saucer so that it's perfectly placed on there, and then we get to paint it. All right, we've cut out all of the little pieces. So now I'm going to take this fancy cloth ruler that's on a keychain, but you can use a cloth ruler, you can use a regular ruler. I just like these ones, especially with a project like this, because there are edges that curl up, so it makes it a little bit easier. But I'm just gonna measure from side to side and go, all right, so it's about 7 inches. So 3.5 is gonna be the point where we wanna make a little mark. Say, all right, so that little point right there, that's gonna be our center. So we're also going to take the X-Acto knife and cut a tiny little circle right there so that when we make a mark on here, we can see it. I'm just gonna make a little diamond. You can do whatever you want. You can make a heart. Don't do a smiley face though, that's not specific enough at all. And now, I'm gonna measure the inside of this as well. So we wanna go right here. So I'm gonna make a very light little pencil mark. And if you want, like I want to, gonna check and make sure that it's in the right spot this way as well. I think that's more precise. And these marks can be covered up by paint again later. So now we can take this and place it on here. And once we've lined that up, then we just trace all the little parts with our pencil, because we're going to try to hand paint these rather than painting with the stencil. Obviously, if you wanted to just like sponge into these spots, that's totally up to you. I have a horrible bad luck with stencils and always wind up having it bleed under the stencil. And I really don't want that with this project because I think it can turn out really pretty. So I'm just gonna take my time. And there we go. So there is the drawn in stencil on the blue. And so now we can take some of our white paint and fill this in. But first, we're going to completely finish this one and get to this point with the orange one, and that way we can do it all at once. Now that we have the stencil down, we're gonna take some white acrylic paint. You want a brush that has kind of an angle like that, that's very soft, because that way we're gonna be able to get these really precise lines without it just going all over the place. If you have a wicker brush, don't use that. I actually have an example of a wicker brush like this that has really like abrasive bristles is gonna make it so that these lines aren't precise at all. So you want one that's very soft. Normally if you get a big set of paintbrushes, you wind up with a mixture. So you wind up with the right brush. Oh man, we've done it. I have to say that hand painting them, while it was a fun challenge, it definitely takes a lot longer than just using it as a stencil. So whichever one that you want to do, I do really love the way that they turned out though. And now we can do the part of the process that's going to turn it into an actual useful item other than just, you know, playing around and pretending that you're portaling things from one area of the house to the other. So we're gonna turn these guys upside down, and they're gonna have a little bit of wear on them from when we originally painted them, so if later you wanna touch that up, feel free. So now we have our hardware, and we're gonna take our E600 or whatever else industrial glue you decided to use. Just gonna unscrew it, puncture it. And for glues like this, normally they say, you know, add a little bit of glue to both sides and then wait 2 minutes for it to become tacky if it's a non-porous surface, which these are. So take it like this and use the side that has the holes at the points. Just go boop, 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 boop. And then add yo tack. Now, we sit and wait for 2 minutes. Also be sure whatever glue that you're using, sometimes they say use in a well-ventilated area, or Gorilla Glue always says that. Always says, and this is kind of toxic, so don't use it inside. So make sure, read the directions, and find out whether or not that's true. There are the crickets. We did it. So now, I'm gonna take this very carefully and plop it down. And put some pressure on it, like that. And what I've seen people do before is put a book on top of it to like keep it held down. It can take up to 24 hours for this to completely dry, but you can use it before then. It just depends on your preference and the temperature that you're in. Okay, so if we flip our fancy Lazy Susans over, do they spin? They totally spin! Another thing that you could do if you wanted is you could put some cork on the bottom if you were concerned about it like sliding around and possibly hurting your surface. Obviously, this coffee table has taken quite a beating, but you probably have a nicer table than I do. So feel free to do felt, cork, anything on the bottom of it to make sure that it's completely safe. Another possible thing that you could do is just take a wood block and attach it to the bottom so that there's like a nice thick layer in between. But now, we can do fun things like this. Ah, amazing! So that is the project. Thank you so much for watching. I had a lot of fun. I hope that you had fun as well. And if you're able to do it, please, please, please take pictures or send me a video because I would love to see your versions of it. If you are wondering about the materials, there is a list in the description, along with links to the actual items if you're having trouble finding anything. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching Swords and Stitches, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Mwah!